Hi, everyone.
Greetings. We're on page 163 of the Pure Worship book.
Mm-hmm.
And what's our subhead here?
The mother of the prostitutes.
I'm going to be reading from my screen and Vivian from the book.
Okay. In the vision Jesus gave to the Apostle John at the end of the 1st century CE, a striking figure emerges. She is called the Great Prostitute and Babylon the Great, the mother of the prostitutes. For centuries, her true identity has mystified religious leaders and Bible scholars. They have variously said that she represents Babylon, Rome, or the Roman Catholic Church. For many decades, however, Jehovah's Witnesses have understood the true identity of this great prostitute. She is the world empire of false religion. How do we know that?
This prostitute is condemned for having immoral relations with the kings of the earth, or the political powers. So she clearly is not a political power herself. Furthermore, Revelation shows that the merchants of the earth, or the commercial and business elements of this world, grieve over the demise of Babylon the Great. So Babylon the Great cannot represent big business. What then is she? She is guilty of spiritual practices of idolatry and of deception. Do not those charges... Spiritistic practices of idolatry and of deception. Do not those charges clearly fit the corrupt religious organizations of this world? Note, too, that this prostitute is depicted as riding or exerting a measure of influence over the political elements of this world. She also persecutes faithful servants of Jehovah God. Is that not exactly what false religion has done right down to our own day?
Why, though, is Babylon the Great called not only the great prostitute, but also the mother of the prostitutes? False religion has countless divisions. There are denominations, sects, and cults without number. Since the time when the languages were confused in ancient Babel or Babylon, all manner of false religious doctrines has been spread abroad, spawning an endless variety of religions. How fitting that Babylon the Great derives her name from the city of Babylon, a breeding ground for false religions. Hence, all these religions may be seen as daughters or one organization.
Daughters of one organization?
Yeah, daughters of one organization, one great prostitute. Satan often uses such religions to lure people into spiritism, idolatry, and other God-dishonoring beliefs and customs. No wonder God's people are warned against that corrupt, world-spanning organization. Get out of her, my people, if you do not want to share with her in her sins.
Notice here that there's only 2 verses that are cited to be read, and that they are Revelation 18 verses 4 and 5.
Yeah.
You need to read 17 in its entirety and 18 in its entirety. Get to that in a minute. Have you heeded that warning? Remember, it is Jehovah himself who created humankind to have a spiritual need. That need can properly be filled only by means of the pure worship of Jehovah. Servants of Jehovah naturally want to keep as far away from spiritual prostitution as possible. But Satan the devil has a different aim. He loves to lure God's people into the snare of this form of prostitution. All too often he has succeeded. By Ezekiel's day, God's people had a long history of getting involved in spiritual prostitution. We do well to examine that history, for it can teach us much about Jehovah's standards, his justice, and his mercy. Before we leave this last idea, I just want to underline the phrase God's people. By Ezekiel's day, God's people had a long history of getting involved in spiritual prostitution. You said more than you realize here. You've said that they were still God's people despite those long history. That's 1,400 years from Abraham to the exile.
So while they were involved in spiritual prostitution, they were God's people.
And what's the implication of that for Christian history? But going back to the first paragraph, I was horrified. I had to shake my head rather violently with this sentence. For centuries, her true identity has mystified religious leaders and Bible scholars. How many Bible scholars have you guys read? If you go to the dozens and dozens of books on Revelation, they're not mystified. They have theories. Sometimes they differ. But very few of them believe today, of the Bible scholars of the last 5, 6, 7 generations, very few of them believe what you claim here. First of all, they're not mystified. They believe Rome, that is pagan Rome, and maybe also spiritual Rome, but that's a belief that's kind of died away now. They believe the Roman Empire is what's being talked about in Revelation 17 and 18, and that's why you need to read the entire chapters rather than a couple of verses here. And the ones they want you to look at are get out of her, get out of her. That's the verse they focus on all the time. What is she? And you've made an elementary mistake in paragraph 5 here, the second one we read. In your default eliminating other options, namely politics and economics. No, again, all you have to do is consult the consensus of Christendom. That is, people who actually have spent their lives studying Revelation and related texts from the Old Testament. They know what you don't seem to realize is that the emphasis in those 2 chapters is not on religion, although there's references, veiled references mostly to religion, but the emphasis is upon her political power and clout. It's also upon her economic, her luxury. This is one of the most elaborate descriptions in all of the Bible is about the luxury that attends what you call false religion. Well, we've been in this world of Christendom for a long time, and there's not a lot of luxury there. There's a lot of self-sacrifice there. So, no, it's all wrong, and we've said a lot about this before, so we'll link the video series we did, especially the 6 videos having to do with
Babylon the Great.
Babylon the Great in the book of Revelation. We've covered this quite thoroughly.
Yeah, even knowing just what the word Babylon would be helpful, because somehow they've got divisions in religions and made them one organization.
How does that work?
Yeah, how does that work? How are they all divided and yet one? Because you're organization happy. Everything has to be an organization.
Then you realize you got all of this from Rutherford. He's the one who's defined for you the world empire, false religion. Russell didn't believe that. He was closer to Protestantism in his belief about what Babylon was.
And they don't give you any reason why. It's just because he says so.
Well,
so it's clear to us.
It's clear because you've already done the eliminating of other options. And that all demands that you don't read Revelation 17 and 18 in context.
Yeah, and you're also looking for someone who's going to be as dogmatic as you are. And just a clear statement, not this is what it could be, this is what it could be. Theories, and we might differ on them. No, you want somebody who will just voice an opinion and force people to believe it.
But the concepts of confusion and organization, as you've already said, just don't fit together.
No.
Organization is an answer to confusion. But the definition of Babylon is confusion. And so that links to a second mistake you've made here. Besides equating organization and confusion somehow, you've made the mistake of following Mr. Hislop, Alexander Hislop, with his diffusion idea that somehow all of these false teachings that are in Christendom and in all the other religions diffused from Babylon around the year 2300 BC. This is Hislop's thesis. It's been exploded. It was exploded even when he was alive. This is 150 years ago. But you're following him blindly here. What do the real historians of Babylonian religion and the history of religions teach about this? Well, it's exactly the opposite, really. Most of the religions of the world grew independently of each other, although there's influences, sometimes cross continents. But here's a real historian.
I don't know.
Saggs, Saggs, The Greatness That Was Babylon. Go to this book, not to Mr. Hislop or to the Pure Worship book, to find out the true history of how religion grew and what its character was in Babylon. The Greatness That Was Babylon. Or go to this book, Thorkild Jacobsen, another specialist, The Treasures of Darkness, A History of Mesopotamian Religion. And Mr. Leonard Woolley, of the Chaldees, Sir Leonard Woolley, who's knighted for his contribution to religious history and to archaeology. These are experts, and these books are readily available. Some of them are available for free online. So there's no excuse for you to not know this history, which completely contradicts the Hislop theory, which Franz and Rutherford follow blindly in this analysis of how Babylon influenced the entire world of false religion, in your view.
We'll write the names of the books and authors in the description.
Yeah. So this last sentence, no, it's not the last sentence, the second sentence in paragraph 7, that need can properly be filled only by means of the pure worship of Jehovah. What's the need? Well, first need, get out of Babylon. That is what you define as false religion. The real need is the spiritual need that they're alluding to here, that Christ addresses right at the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount. Happy are the poor in spirit. Well, that doesn't really describe Jehovah's Witnesses, does it? They're not needy. They think they have it. They think they have the truth because they're in the right organization. One could wish that they were as spiritually hungry and spiritually needy as the people that we've met who've left Jehovah's Witnesses, who realize how starved they were by living off this diet of measly portions that the Watchtower continues to recycle generation after generation. I do think, though, one more emphasis of that last thought. By Ezekiel's day, God's people had a long history of getting involved in spiritual prostitution. There's a lot wrong with Christendom, but your analysis of it here just falls flat, because you don't realize that the reason that Christendom has the problems is by the permissive will of Jesus Christ, who said the wheat and the weeds will grow together. You're going to find a great harvest of bad stuff in Christendom, and you're going to find a wonderful harvest of nourishing food and well-fed people. They both exist within this thing that you decry and cast off.
There's an awareness of the impossibility of us being pure because we're sinners.
The message of the last 9 or so chapters of Ezekiel, right? Namely, that the reason we offer these sacrifices and have a place to go to where we worship God acceptably, but not purely, is because we are not pure worshipers.
We acknowledge our sin. That's why we need to come together.
Yeah. What's our link?
It was the Babylon the Great series playlist, and then the first of 6 videos we did about Babylon the Great.
Yeah, 6 consecutive videos just dealing with Babylon the Great in the book of Revelation.
Yeah, the identity. Yeah.
Check it out.
Okay.
See you next time.
You haven't.